Hello, folks, and welcome again to another edition of the Dr. Mark Foster Show. This program will be rather brief and focused. I am recording this right on the heels of the previous one. It's a subject which actually occurred to me as I was broadcasting the earlier show. I thought about simply attaching it to the end, but decided that I would go ahead and devote a separate program to it. It will be rather short, I think. I am responding essentially to one or two people who left comments on this program, or other programs I should say, on my YouTube channel. Commenting about my voice and how I sound like I'm speaking maybe kind of robotically, or in a monotone, or in a kind of, I don't know, a sleepy way. I forget the exact way that the person put it. Now let me first acknowledge that I'm aware of it. I've worked on it over the years. I know that I do sound that way, but for what little it's worth, I am a lot better than I used to be. If I'm just reading text, I do fine, but I generally do not read that much text when I'm recording, and so it's just me speaking extemporaneously. I'm improvising. So I am, again, an autistic. My voice was very limited as a child. I could barely communicate. Like many autistics, I had a problem communicating. It was not as bad with my family. It was very, very bad outside my family. It would take a long time simply to get out a word sometimes. I'm talking about a really, really horrendous stuttering problem. But really horrendous. I have not known very many people who had a stuttering problem as bad as mine. I'm sure there are some, but I haven't known them. So it took me a lot of work, and deliberate work at one time, not to stutter, or not to speak rapidly. I had a tendency, and still do if I'm not careful, to speak so rapidly that people end up saying, "Oh, can you repeat that, please?" So I have had to intentionally slow down the pace of my voice, and simultaneously I have to be aware of not stuttering. It's not hard for me anymore not to stutter, but if I'm not thinking about it, I will. So it's not like I can't get out certain words, but when I'm not conscious of my stuttering problem, I will fall back into that pattern. So what people are noticing is just that. It's obviously not something which is apparent in my writing, but my writing has always been kind of somewhat stilted until recently. I've learned to write in a much more relaxed and easy to understand way. So I think my writing comes across as pretty natural now. It didn't used to. But my voice, yeah, I know. I realize that the way I talk does sound kind of robotic or artificial or affected or stilted. Believe me, it's not intentional. I have to work really, really hard to speak as well as I do. as a kid I had voice training, and it was not to eliminate my stuttering problem. It was as a part of my acting training. I went to acting school for many years. That was at one time my chosen profession. I ended up leaving it rather quickly, but that was my intention at one time. I also used it and have used it over the years in doing radio broadcasting, which I have done, working for regular on-air broadcast stations, 3 different ones. But now, since I'm not, again, reading text and I'm simply speaking, well, this is the way that I address my students. And I would assume that some of my students find my way of speaking to be a bit, I don't know, annoying or stilted or artificial. And again, I know how I sound. You know, I've heard recordings of myself, so it's not a surprise to me. I know that I sound differently from how most people sound. That is not unusual for autistics. When a person is an autistic like me, we can often recognize each other, I have found, by simply listening to each other speak for a moment. There's a certain distinctive tone, I suppose, or rhythm, maybe, to the way in which many autistics speak, kind of artificial pauses, something like that. Sounds kind of automated or, as I said before, mechanical or robotic. So it's not hard for me to pick it out if I'm listening carefully. So again, this is in that sense an apology. I wish that my voice were better in that sense. I think that I do speak well in the sense of my diction. That came as a result of my voice training, which enabled me to get rid of my New York accent, my New York City accent, since that's where I was born and raised. So I don't have much of a New York accent anymore, maybe a bit, but not much. But I know my voice does sound a bit odd. Autistics are odd. You know, we are an odd bunch of people. So that's really all I wanted to say is, to apologize for that, and to ask you to please have patience with me. I am trying. I do my best, and if I don't always live up to that, it's honestly I'm not living up to my own expectations either. So it is a struggle for me all the time. My voice has always been a struggle for me, and even now it continues to be that to an extent. Until next time, this is Dr. Mark Foster. Have a good one.